My name is Eva. I mean, who hasn't gone through difficult times? My dad was everything to me and my rock. It's just the two of us against the world ever since Clara died when I was a tiny child. He constantly emphasized the value of education and did his best to save every penny I needed to pursue my college degree. He would give me a wink and tell me, "You're going to make it, kiddo," while continuing to add little amounts of money to our tattered college fund jar. I gave him credence. Above all, I had faith in us. I enrolled at the nearby community college after high school with the goal of becoming well-known in the investment management industry. I got to know Max there. He was pleasant and unkempt in a way that somehow worked wonders on me. He was a member of my cohort. We hit it off right away, exchanging looks over lukewarm cafeteria coffee and laughs between lectures. Then the floor gave way under me. Dad died suddenly, without any prior notice. Our financial stability vanished as well, like a house of cards in a breeze. The college money proved to be more wishful than practical. In addition to missing Dad and his advice, I had to come to terms with the fact that my time as a college student was running out. With perseverance and scraps, I made it through my first year, but as the money dried up, I had to drop out. The flat, a modest 3-bedroom in a dilapidated area of town, was Dad's gift to me. Though little, it was home. On a cold evening, Max arrived to the flat with his hand tucked into the pockets of his worn pants. With a glance around the room where the wallpaper was softly peeling at the corners, he said, "You live here alone, Eva." "Yeah, just me now," I said, attempting to tamp down a particularly disobedient wallpaper strip. "It's not much, but it's what I've got." After observing me for a while, he moved in closer and clasped my hands. "Eva, let's get married. I want to look after you. Here, let's begin our lives together." Yes, it was abrupt, but why start now when nothing in my life had ever been planned? I responded, "Okay, Max," and it felt appropriate. Our wait was short. With only a few people present, the wedding took place in the municipal hall and was as simple as they come. Max's parents failed to appear. They thought I couldn't hear them, whispering that I was too plain and they'd never truly approved of me. They had chanted, "Not one of us." Yet Max held my hand and said, "I love you." That is all that is important. Following the ceremony, we strolled back to my current flat, with the pavement illuminated by the deep shadows created by the late afternoon light. Max broke open a bottle of the least expensive champagne available at the corner shop and gave each of us a shaky glass filled with frothy goodness. To us, he raised his glass in salute. With a taste of promise and fresh starts, the champagne fizzed on my tongue as I repeated the toast. Chapter 2. Assertions made. Max and I had a deal in which I would pay the bills and he would hit the books. After he finished college, it would be my chance to pursue the degree I abandoned when life became too difficult. Easy enough, huh? Though nothing is ever so simple, so's what I also believed. I had 2 jobs. During the day, I worked as a grocery store cashier, where I had to cope with long lineups and occasionally late customers. At night, I changed into a waitress uniform and worked as a server at a nearby restaurant, where I served late-night drifters and truckers lousy burgers and tepid coffee. Even though it was exhausting, I persevered because I knew that one day I would return through those college doors. Max, on the other hand, claimed to be knee-deep in his studies. With them, his demands increased. "When is dinner, Eva?" He would always grumble as soon as I dragged my tired body in the door. "I can't eat this fast food crap anymore. I need something decent like Clara used to make." I would bite back, throwing my keys on the table in a tired and angry manner. "Max, you should try cooking it yourself. I'm not your mother." He would frown and avert his eyes. "My goal in learning is to succeed in life. Maintaining a tidy home is the very least you could do." His words would ignite a fire in my chest, slicing through my fatigue. However, I would eat the response, worried about the rift it may create in our already brittle accord. Max's folks weren't very helpful. Compared to my diner-stained clothing and high school certificate, They were well educated and polished. They hardly ever recognized me, and when they did, it was always with a sly smile or a barely concealed criticism. "If you had completed your schooling, my love," Max's mother would remark, drinking her expertly prepared tea and peering over the rims of her glasses. Max did not support me. He simply followed along, taking in their words as if they were gospel. He would spend evenings there more and more, running away from our small apartment and all of the obligations that came with it. Max dropped another blow one evening while I was cleaning the grease from the diner under my fingernails. "I'm spending the night with my folks. Require a decent night's sleep and a genuine study space. I may have banged the bathroom cupboard a bit too hard. All right, fulfill your obligations." The words pierced me deeply, acting to express everything I was unable to express. I took comfort in my routines as the days stretched into months, as the monotonous work at my job let me forget about the growing annoyances at home. I went through the processes like a robot, scanning the objects, grinning, serving meals, cleaning up, rinsing, and repeating. After a very long night, I arrived home to find my flat vacant. "No, Max, no excuses. Just a heads up. Away to study. Ensure that tomorrow's meal is prepared." I creased the message, the sheet severing in my hand. I gave myself a time alone myself in the dark light of our kitchen to truly feel everything, the weariness, the loneliness, the boiling rage. I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter, trying not to cry aloud but letting a silent one slip out. Eventually, Max graduated after years of working 2 jobs and watched himself lose himself in his books. The news that Max had almost instantly been hired by a prominent firm was a breath of fresh air in our otherwise stressful existence. Compared to my regular tips at the cafe, his new employment came with a paycheck that felt like a lottery win. One evening, as I sat across from him at our tiny kitchen table, I could feel my excitement rising. I tried to keep my voice steady as I spoke, full of long-forgotten ambitions and goals. "So, with your new job, I was thinking it might be time for me to cut back at work and start looking at programs, to pick up where I left off," I said. Max remained staring at his plate. "Eva, it is beyond our means. You are aware how tight the budget is given the current state of affairs, and every penny must be accounted for." His remarks were echoed by the sharp sound of his fork clattering on the plate. Leaning back, I felt my heart soften but not give up. Maybe only the day shifts, but I could stick with one job. We would still be financially secure, and I could handle taking school at night. His voice was stern and dismissive as he shook his head. "Just put college out of your mind, Eva. Instead of increasing debt, we need stability. It isn't useful." That was the end of our talk, but the disagreement lingered in my mind for days. I became pregnant before I had a chance to investigate more. College was no longer a fantasy. Instead, our daughter Lily took precedence in my life. Although raising Lily was a delight, it also served as an additional link binding me to obligations and routines that I hadn't chosen on my own. Like the goods I stocked, my goals were put on hold while I kept working at the grocery store. Max's critiques of my shelved education extended to my parenting as well. "Eva, you're not doing this correctly. She should be taught good manners, not this thing you're trying to teach her," Max would add, without taking his eyes from his phone. I recalled cuddling up to Lily and making her promises in whispers that I was starting to question my ability to keep. "It's all right, sweetie. Clara is here," I would say. Max's parents became increasingly interested as Lily matured. Their impact outweighed mine. Their posh preschool was paid for, and their grandparental pride was on display at every school function. Max made a new rule very clear one evening. It would be preferable if Eva skipped the school functions. Families should live up to the expectations of the instructors. Lily's chances cannot be ruined by us. Those remarks stung, a smack disguised as sympathy for my father. So what should I do now? Just remain at home and act as though I don't have a kid who is developing, discovering things I don't teach her, and changing into a person I hardly know? All he said was, It's for the best. Is apathy the last straw that crushed our once shared hopes? As the years turned, Max's comments gained weight, the type that draws you down rather than keeps you anchored in place. His stern instructions to our daughter Lily created an impression on her, instilling in her a contempt for me, her mother. Don't bother instructing Eva what to do, Eva. You talk, and she listens to me. When I proposed that Lily may set the table one evening, Max angrily said, "It's for her own good." His statements were always like this in front of Lily. With a sinking heart, I witnessed my young daughter's eyes grow as harsh as her father's. Lily used to yell at me, "You don't know anything, Clara," whenever I asked for assistance around the home. Her voice echoed her dad's, every utterance a jab. I made an attempt to connect with her, to fill the growing void between us with mother-daughter conversations, but all I could do was watch her recede more into her own world. A picture that Max and his dad created. Something cruelly brought everything into light one miserable day. Lily's pals were over, and our house was filled with laughing and happy chatter. I ran into them in the hallway when I was cleaning. Lily paused, her gaze flitting between her pals and myself. I was ready to say hello as I smiled and wiped my hands on my apron, but Lily interrupted before I could finish my sentence. "Oh, this is just our housekeeper." Her pals nodded, scarcely looking at me twice as they padded inside Lily's spotless room, which was off limits to people like me. The adolescent giggles were muted and felt like needles in my chest as the door snapped shut. I went back to the kitchen and leaned against the refrigerator while crying, despite my determination not to let this destroy me. Not some unappreciated servant in my own house. I was her mother. I faced Max that night, my voice steady yet trembling. "How could you allow her to treat me this way? Our daughter." She referred to me as the housekeeping today. Max continued to stare at his paper. "Perhaps she would appreciate you more if you didn't dress the part. You're always wiping with those rags. What are your expectations?" His remarks cut through any remaining barriers and hurt. "Max, I'm trying. You and your folks are instilling hatred in her against me while I'm attempting to make this a home." He folded his newspaper neatly, sneering. "Eva, you have to get over your oversensitivity. She is growing up in a world that is distinct from your own. She must blend in." Restless nights ensued. Max's distance, his parents' callousness, and now Lily's rejection presented a harsh picture that sent my thoughts spiraling. I felt like an alien in my own life, reduced to the position of a quiet supplier who goes unnoticed and unloved. Lily was more and more embarrassed of me as I saw her mature into a teenager. Her remarks on my antiquated attire and basic etiquette struck a deeper chord because they repeated what Max had said. Her mother, who had given up everything to become invisible, was embarrassed to be seen with me. Though I had hoped it would be a turning point for something better, something gentler, turning 37 wasn't intended to be a big deal. I reserved a table at a classy downtown restaurant with a heart full of uncertain hope. A quiet party, just Max and Lily. Simple yet effective, something that might, just might, pull us back together for a night. Upon returning from work, the prospect of spending a peaceful evening with my loved ones lifted my mood. When I first entered the flat, it was extremely quiet. Sitting in the living room with their backs to the television, Max and Lily appeared as though they were expecting terrible news. "I have a surprise for you. I reserved a table for the three of us to celebrate my birthday at Marcelo's for dinner." I added, my voice upbeat, pushing joy over the boundaries of my tiredness. Max flicked off the television and gave me a questioning glance as a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Eva, seriously, you think we want to go out and celebrate with you? A dropout? What would we even talk about?" Max's words were casual, but they cut deep, his smirk turning into a sneer. "Yeah, Clara, it's kind of embarrassing. You wouldn't even know which fork to use," Lily added, her words echoing her father's disdain. I felt my face flush, the sting of their words like a slap. "I just thought we could be a family for tonight." With a bitter, sarcastic chuckle, Max said out, A family where you're embarrassing yourself. Thank you, not at all. Well, this is a present from me to you." With a dramatic flourish, he got up, went to his briefcase and took out an envelope, threw it upon the coffee table. I grabbed it up, shaking hands, confused. It was an application for divorce. This is your gift." With a broken voice, I asked. "Yes, you may think of yourself as free of us. Eva, we're done. Lily and I are moving out together." With a cold, calculating voice, he replied, "You can keep this place." Lily simply nodded and got up to go follow her dad. "I'd want to live with my father. Mother, I can't be seen with you. It's simply too awkward." With icy precision, they gathered up their belongings. I stood there, dumbfounded, watching as my entire world fell apart, not just the tangible parts of our existence, but also the final shreds of love and relational illusion. Without saying farewell, they walked out of the empty flat, the door shutting with a quiet click that resounded like a gunshot. The divorce process was nasty, clinical, and expeditious. Max's parents gave stern, critical testimony about my shortcomings, portraying me as an ignorant, unsuitable mother. Lily too spoke, her words practiced and her voice calm. "I wish to move in with my father. He's more ideal for me." As I listened to the long list of my alleged failings while seated in that antiseptic courtroom, I felt as though something inside of me was breaking, or perhaps coming together. An insight solidified into determination. Their remarks had stopped hurting me since they were all strangers to me. It was just the two of me. But maybe I did need that independence. I was certain of one thing. I had to demonstrate my greater abilities, if only to myself. That unwavering determination brought me back to the college doors I had left behind years before. I re-enrolled, older than the majority of my classmates and with a fierceness that only adversity can confer on one. I employed instructors and struggled with financial models and investing theories throughout the nights. I became dizzy from the effort. It was a minefield on social media. Occasionally, a picture of Lily, Max, and that woman, Max's new partner, would appear. They appeared content and carefree as they lived it up in a chic downtown condominium that exuded wealth. Seeing them so happy as I was trying to put myself back together hurt like hell. But I turned that into fuel and didn't let it bring me down. Every image and every post challenged me more. I used my hurt and rage as fuel for my studies, using my resentment as inspiration. By the time graduation day arrived, I had changed from the beginning. "Eva, you've got what it takes." In our last meeting, Dr. Henson, my favorite professor, advised me to don't let anyone tell you differently. His words soothed the sore spots on my pride. His endorsement helped me get a job at a reputable company, and I entered the banking industry determined to succeed. Another battlefield I was now well prepared to face was the business sector. For a brief while, I was simply another employee. I worked my way up from the bottom level to department head in 3 years. The company's future was being shaped by my actions, and my name was on an office door. I redesigned my life in tandem with my profession. My beat-up old automobile was exchanged in for a shiny new one that buzzed beneath my fingers like a promise. My apartment came next, a high-rise with views of the city that twinkled like the stars I was aiming for, going from a humble to a contemporary one. Purchasing new clothing was about more than simply fashion. It was for protection. Every item, from a chic dress to a smart suit, was picked to showcase the new me, the strong, capable entrepreneur. Previously always held back in a functional ponytail, my hair was now styled in fashionable patterns that showed my attention to detail or fell in attractive waves. The magnitude of my metamorphosis was known only to my closest pals. "Eva, you're carrying out your destiny." One day, over coffee, my friend Jenna informed me, her eyes wide with the changes she was noticing. "It's like you finally found your stage," she said. "Yes, I suppose I have," I said as I sipped my cappuccino. All of the suffering brought about by Max and Lily vanished from view, becoming only a minor plot point rather than the central one in my narrative. One late night, I was looking through job advertisements when I came across one that made my heart skip a beat. The firm where my ex-husband Max worked was the one offering a department head post. I applied, partly because it was so daring, and partly because I had a deep-seated urge to prove myself. The next week was the interview. I entered the room with the confidence of a woman who had everything to prove and nothing to lose. 3 interviewees made up the panel. Each was more pleased than the previous as we covered a wide range of topics, including financial plans and market trends. By the end, they appeared sincere in their excitement about what I had to offer. Well, Eva, I have to admit, it's nice to see someone with such a distinct vision and in-depth understanding. With a sincere smile on his face, the senior interviewer said, "We'd be lucky to have you on board." "I'm grateful," I answered in a calm and determined manner, eager to get started right away. My first day seemed like a scene from a movie. There was a round of courteous applause and warm smiles as I was presented to my new crew. That is, until they saw Max's face. The look of horror on his face was enough to power the metropolis for several hours. His mouth was slightly open, and his eyes were big, as if he had seen a ghost. Mr. Reynolds, the company's CEO, appeared to find the situation humorous. With a pat on my shoulder, he said, "I hope everyone will make sure Eva gets all the help she needs. I am confident that she will take our department to new heights and that she comes highly recommended." Max responded in a less than polite manner. His voice angry yet quiet, he marched up to Mr. Reynolds as the room cleared. "I put in my application for this job. Why did she receive it? What's in her possession that I'm not?" Mr. Reynolds lifted an eyebrow, first at Max and then at me. "Max, the choice was made solely on the basis of merit. Eva has significantly more qualifications than you have, and she has a far better vision for the department. You might pick up a lot of knowledge from her. Take advice from her. I take it that this is some sort of joke." Max growled, raising his voice. "Max, this is not a joke." With a calm response, Mr. Reynolds said, "I suggest you change your attitude and concentrate on your own responsibilities." Max, humiliated, took an unexpected action. He grumbled something about a dumb employer, tossed his ID badge on the table, and walked out. Mr. Reynolds watched Max go, sighing and shaking his head. "I apologize to Eva for it. I'll take care of it now. Why don't you begin working with your group now?" I watched Max walk down the corridor and nodded, a tiny contented grin flickering on my lips. His enraged feet seemed to me like beautiful music. I heard Mr. Reynolds talking on the phone later. He did really resign. No, not after this. I'm unable to endorse him favorably. The remainder of the day passed in a whirl of planning meetings and introductions. But one thing was constant in my thoughts throughout it all. Justice had been served, in a perverted sense. Max had underestimated me, as he always did. But I had prevailed this time. Max's career took a sharp turn for the worst when he stormed out of the office that day, and I never would have predicted it. Through common connections, rumors circulated that Max's newest lover had ejected him and Lily from her opulent apartment. These people were eager to share the information with me. They were so desperate that they had to move back in with Max's parents. I kept thinking about how the powerful had fallen. During this turbulent period, my door was visited by Lily, who was by then a college student and just as demanding as she had been raised to be. She gave a soft little whistle. "Whoa, Clara, you've really improved. I guess it worked out for you to dump Dad." Although her tone was kind, there was a hint of sharpness that made me cautious. "Lily, what brings you here?" She strolled in and settled into my luxurious couch as like she was the owner. "Well, things are a little tight at Grandpa's, and I realize that you're wealthy, stylish, and intelligent today. Perhaps I could move in here, but obviously I'd need a good allowance." I really looked at her, and I could see how much Max had influenced the way she carried herself. I was hurt, but there was no denying the insight it provided. "I believe you ought to go, Lily. I refuse to be exploited in this manner by you or anybody else." Tears filled her cheeks, but they didn't move me the way they once had. Her rage erupted when her cries failed to convince me. She said, "You're just selfish, like you always were," and rushed out. Her final remarks stung like a bee in the sea of my flat. Over the next weeks, I received tidbits of news. Unable to handle his damaged ego, Max had taken to drinking, and Lily had relocated to a different city, maybe in an attempt to achieve the independence she so much wanted. For me, success and fresh starts were the norm in my life. I got to know Michael, a coworker whose kind nature and silent power stood in stark contrast to Max's bellicose and vicious demeanor. Our friendship eventually turned into love, and we were married in a modest, happy ceremony in front of everyone who genuinely cared about us. After giving the turbulent voyage some thought, I saw that I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more empathetic. I had lost a family, but I had also found myself and, with it, a chance for a real, meaningful life and love. With a sense of readiness for whatever was ahead, I knew that I had not only survived but also flourished, writing a victory story that was uniquely mine.
Hey there, I'm Jenna. Before I dive into my story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more tales like this one. I had just turned 32 when I decided to buy my first house. A charming little place with a cozy backyard, perfect for my 2 dogs. This purchase was more than just a financial investment. It was my declaration of independence, my way of showing that I was finally in control of my own life. The day of the housewarming arrived, filled with a mix of excitement and nerves. I planned every detail meticulously, wanting the celebration to be a perfect blend of fun and formality, a true milestone. My parents were at the top of the guest list, the only family I had invited, given the complicated dynamics that extending further would have brought. As guests started arriving, the afternoon buzzed with laughter and chatter. I was in the middle of showing my college friend Lisa the renovations I had planned when the doorbell rang again. Expecting a neighbor or a late-arriving friend, I opened the door with a smile. Standing there in the doorway were my mom, Carson, and his daughter, Vanessa. Carson gave me a wide grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, while Vanessa looked around my living room like she'd just stepped into a thrift shop. "Jenna, darling, I hope you don't mind us bringing a little extra company," my mom chirped, breezing past me with a flurry of apologies I barely absorbed. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. "Mom, I thought it was just going to be us," I finally managed, my voice a mixture of confusion and irritation. "Oh, honey, I knew you wouldn't mind. Carson really wanted to see your place, and Vanessa's been so excited to meet you," my mother gushed, as if she hadn't just completely disregarded my explicit guest list. As the party went on, I tried to shake off the annoyance, telling myself it could still be a good day. But I was wrong. "I would have chosen a different color here. This shade is so 2010. Vanessa sneered, loud enough for a group of my friends to hear as they toured the living room. The room fell into an awkward silence, my friends exchanging glances. I felt my cheeks heat up with a mix of embarrassment and anger. This was supposed to be my celebration, my day to shine in my new home. I couldn't let her ruin it. Turning to face Vanessa, I forced a smile. "Well, Vanessa, not all of us need to follow the latest trends to feel good about our homes. Some of us prefer a more timeless approach," I shot back, my words sharper than I intended. The room erupted in a mix of surprised laughter and uncomfortable murmurs. "Why would anyone arrange their living room like this? It's almost like she's never heard of interior design," Vanessa quipped again. That was it. I couldn't hold back any longer. My friends, trying to hide their discomfort, looked on as I marched over to where Vanessa stood, a smug grin on her face. The room hushed, the tension palpable. "You know, Vanessa, if you have suggestions, I'm all ears. But maybe we could discuss them without you insulting my choices in front of my guests," I said, my voice calm but firm, the challenge clear. She blinked, taken aback, then scoffed. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. No need to be so sensitive," she replied dismissively. But the murmurs from the crowd told me they were not, in fact, thinking anything of the sort. My friends' faces showed a mix of support and anticipation, the air thick with awkwardness, but also a hint of solidarity for my stand. Just as I thought the ordeal with Vanessa was about to blow over, my mom pulled me aside, her expression fraught with anxiety and a plea I knew all too well. "Jenna, could we talk about something in private?" she asked, her tone soft, almost apologetic. In the quiet of the hallway, away from prying eyes and ears, she dropped the bombshell. "Honey, I know this is a lot to ask, but could Vanessa possibly stay with you for a while? Just until they sort out their living situation." The request hit me like a punch. "Mom, I can't do that. This is my space, and after tonight, it's clear Vanessa and I aren't exactly compatible," I said, my voice firm. My mother's face fell, her disappointment palpable. "Jenna, she's struggling. You know how tough Carson can be on her. It would only be for a little while," she pressed, the weight of her expectation heavy on my shoulders. This was typical, her trying to bridge gaps by putting me in uncomfortable positions. But this was too much. "Mom, no, I need to set boundaries. I can't have her stay here, not after how she's behaved. I'm sorry, but that's my final answer," I said, the finality in my tone unmistakable. The hurt in her eyes was something I hated to cause. But as she walked away, her shoulders slumped, I felt a mix of triumph and dread. Triumph because I had stood up for myself, dread because I knew this wasn't the end of it. As the party wound down and the last guest departed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just opened a new, unwelcome chapter in my life. The confrontation with Vanessa had been necessary, but it felt like I had stirred a hornet's nest. After everyone left, the house felt eerily quiet, the echoes of laughter replaced by a somber stillness. I began to clean up, the task mundane but grounding. Each plate I washed and every crumb I swept away felt like an attempt to clear the mess of the evening. Not just the physical debris, but the emotional turmoil that had spilled over. Later, as I lay in bed, the house dark and still around me, I replayed the evening in my mind. My spine tingled with apprehension at what was to come. Vanessa's smirk, Carson's disapproving glare, and my mother's disappointment haunted the edges of my thoughts. As sleep finally claimed me, I clung to the hope that perhaps the fallout wouldn't be as bad as I feared. But deep down, I knew better. This was just the beginning, and the repercussions of my refusal would ripple out farther than I could have imagined. The next morning started ordinarily enough: coffee, a quick scroll through emails, and a to-do list for the day ahead. But that normalcy shattered with a ping from my phone. A security alert from my home system. Panic tightened in my chest as I viewed the live feed. Someone was at my house. I rushed home, my mind racing with possibilities, but nothing prepared me for the scene I encountered. The locks had been changed. My key was useless against the new mechanism. Peering through the window, my blood boiled as I saw Vanessa lounging on my sofa, a smug smile on her face. "What are you doing in my house?" I shouted through the door. The door swung open, and there stood Carson, his grin wide and unwelcoming. "Oh, Jenna, we thought we'd take you up on that offer to stay after all," he sneered, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "There was no offer, Carson. Get out of my house now," I demanded, my voice sharp with anger. Carson leaned against the doorway, his posture relaxed, a stark contrast to the tightening grip of fury in my voice. "Now, Jenna, let's not be hasty. You wouldn't want to upset your mother, would you? Remember her issues with the police?" His words hit their mark. He knew exactly how to manipulate the situation, using my mother's traumatic history with law enforcement to deter me. My mother had always been terrified of any involvement with the police, a fear born from a deeply troubling incident in her past. Carson was aware of this and wielded that knowledge like a weapon. But I couldn't let that stop me. This was my home, my sanctuary. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police, Carson. You can't just break into someone's house and change the locks," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. His smirk faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face as I dialed. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the street. The police arrived swiftly, their questions pointed and direct. Carson and Vanessa's attempts to spin the situation fell flat against the legal reality of their actions. "I have every right to secure my property," Carson argued, his confidence waning under the officer's unimpressed gaze. "The locks were changed without permission, and she was not notified," one officer noted, scribbling in his notebook. The law was clear, and my unwelcome guests had no leg to stand on. The eviction was quick. Carson and Vanessa were escorted out, their protests muted by the firm instructions of the police. Watching them leave, a mix of relief and sorrow washed over me. Relief that my home was mine again. sorrow for the inevitable fallout this would cause with my mother. As the police finished their report, one officer lingered. "Are you going to be okay?" he asked, his tone genuine. I nodded, though my heart was heavy. "Yes, thank you. I didn't have a choice." He offered a sympathetic smile before leaving. The door closed behind him, and I was alone in a quiet aftermath. The space felt larger and emptier somehow. I walked through each room, reaffirming my presence in the space that was almost taken from me. The weight of the day's events pressed down on me, a reminder of the battles I still faced. Carson and Vanessa might be gone for now, but I knew this wasn't over. The consequences of the day would ripple through my family, possibly irreversibly. Yet despite the turmoil, a stubborn flame of defiance flickered within me. This was my home, and I would fight for it, no matter the cost. The silence of the evening was shattered by the sharp ring of my phone. My heart sank as I saw my mom's name flash across the screen. I braced myself, knowing this conversation was inevitable. "Mom," I answered, my voice a whisper of apprehension. "Jenna," she began, her tone thick with emotion. How could you? How could you do this to Carson and Vanessa after everything they've been through?" Her words stung, and I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Mom, they broke into my house. They changed my locks. What was I supposed to do? Just let them take over my home." "You could have handled it differently, Jenna. You know how I feel about the police," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "Mom, I didn't have any other choice. They left me no choice," I said, the frustration evident in my tone. "This is my home, and I had to protect it." There was a heavy pause on the line, the weight of her next words hanging between us. "I can't believe this. I thought you understood, Jenna. I thought you cared more about your family." "I do care, Mom, but shouldn't my safety and my rights matter too? Why is it always about what I can do for others and not about what's right for me?" The questions tumbled out, fueled by years of suppressed feelings. "You just don't get it, do you?" Her voice broke, laden with a mix of anger and sorrow. "I can't support this. I can't be part of this." My throat tightened. "What are you saying?" I asked, dreading the answer. "I think it's better if we don't talk for a while. I need to think about all this." With those final words, she ended the call, leaving a silence that felt like a void. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. My mother, my lifelong anchor, had cast me adrift over this. I sank onto the couch, feeling the fabric of the cushions that no comfort could soften. Looking out the window, the night seemed endless. The contours of my home, usually so comforting, now felt alien, reshaped by the day's events. Thoughts of family, loyalty, manipulation, and the personal cost of standing up for oneself swirled through my mind. Was there a different way I could have handled things? A path that wouldn't have led to this rift? As the night drew on, I wrestled with these thoughts. Manipulation wasn't just about coercing someone. It was about making them feel guilty for standing firm. Carson had used my mother's fears against me, and now my mother was unwittingly doing the same with her disappointment. By dawn, a resolve settled over me. Protecting my emotional and psychological space was as vital as defending my physical one. The rift with my mother was painful but necessary for my growth. Standing there in the quiet morning, I knew the battle for my home was over, but the journey to reclaim my life had just begun. As the days turned into weeks, the initial sting of my mother's words dulled into a persistent ache, a constant reminder of the price of my newfound autonomy. The silence from her end was deafening, yet with each passing day, I found pieces of myself that I hadn't realized were lost in the fray of familial obligations. My home, once a battleground of invasion and conflict, slowly transformed back into the sanctuary I had envisioned. I repainted the living room, erasing the last traces of Vanessa's scornful marks. With each stroke of the brush, new locks, stronger and more secure, clicked reassuringly under my fingers, symbolizing the barriers I was learning to set. In the solitude of my reclaimed space, I discovered a resilience I had never given myself credit for. My friends and neighbors, aware of the ordeal, rallied around me. Their support was a balm to the isolation inflicted by my family's absence. Dinners, movie nights, and long walks with those who chose to stay by my side filled my days, reminding me that family isn't just about blood. It's also about who stands with you when the ground falls away. The fate of Carson and Vanessa remained a distant murmur in my life, their paths diverging from mine in the wake of the eviction. Rumors of their struggles occasionally reached me through mutual acquaintances, but they no longer held sway over my emotions. My focus was on rebuilding, on fortifying the life I chose rather than the one imposed upon me. One crisp morning, as I stood in my garden planting seeds that would one day bloom into vibrant flowers, I realized that this was what true independence felt like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of peace in its aftermath. The estrangement from my mother was a deep scar, one that might never fully heal, but it was also a testament to the lengths I would go to protect my peace. The journey to self-empowerment is often a solitary one, fraught with tough decisions and painful reckonings. Yet, as I looked around at the home I fought to protect, I knew it was all worth it. Here, in my own space, I was free to live life on my terms, surrounded by those who respected and supported my boundaries. This wasn't just a house, it was my declaration of independence, my claim to a life unscripted by others. Now that our story has come to an end, what would you have done if you were in Jenna's shoes? Would you prioritize family peace or personal boundaries? Hi, I'm Sarah. Before I dive into my story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more of my life's tales. Now let's get into it. Everything changed when I was 15. My dad, the most important person in my life, passed away suddenly. He left me everything in his will, including our family home. But there was a catch. I couldn't legally claim anything until I turned 21. That's when things started going downhill with my mom, Joan. Not long after Dad's funeral, Joan brought Tom into our lives. He moved in so quickly it was like he had always been there, waiting in the wings. And he didn't come alone. He brought his 2 kids from a previous marriage, Mia and Jake. Sarah, this is Tom, and these are his children, Mia and Jake. We're all going to live together now, Joan said one evening as she introduced everyone around our old kitchen table. The room felt smaller with them there, crowded with strangers trying to smile at me. Hi, Sarah, Tom said, offering a hand I didn't feel like shaking. Mia and Jake are excited to have a big sister. Mia, about 13, gave me a timid wave, and Jake, a year younger, just nodded, busy munching on a cookie. I tried to smile back, but it felt like I was wearing a mask. As days turned into weeks, Joan's attention shifted more towards Tom and his kids. It started with small things, like Joan asking me to change my study time so Tom could watch TV in the living room. Sarah, could you maybe study in your room tonight? Tom wants to catch the game, and he likes watching it on the big screen, Joan suggested one evening, not meeting my eyes. Sure, it wasn't a big deal at first, but then it became routine. My presence felt like an inconvenience in my own house. Then came my 16th birthday. Instead of our usual celebration, Joan organized a small, quiet dinner, overshadowed by Tom's big promotion party the following weekend. Sarah, we thought we'd keep it low-key this year, with everything going on, Joan explained, avoiding my gaze as she set the table. The everything seemed to only include Tom's needs. Things escalated when Tom's idea of discipline clashed with the freedom I was used to. Sarah, your mother tells me you were out past curfew last night. Tom confronted me one evening as I entered the kitchen for a glass of water. Yeah, I was studying at a friend's, I replied, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Well, we need rules to maintain order. Your mom agrees that a stricter curfew is reasonable, Tom asserted, his tone final. The discussions turned into arguments, and my objections were met with cold stares from Joan and disapproving shakes from Tom. I just think it's unfair. Dad never. Sarah, Tom is just trying to help. We're a family now, and you need to start seeing him as part of it. Joan cut me off one night at dinner, her voice sharper than I remembered it ever being toward me. Feeling isolated and sidelined, my home didn't feel like mine anymore. My relationship with Joan suffered the most. It felt like she had chosen Tom and his kids over her own daughter. My once warm and inviting home turned cold and unfamiliar, filled with the constant reminder that I was the odd one out. This story isn't just about a house or an inheritance. It's about finding where you truly belong and standing up for yourself, even if it means standing alone. Stay tuned for how this journey unfolds. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. The air at home got thicker each day, like a storm was always about to break. Tom's rules multiplied, each one seeming to squeeze a bit more of my space away. The dinner table, once a place of laughter and shared stories, had become a battleground. You're not going out tonight, Sarah. We're having a family game night, and it's important for you to be there, Tom stated as he dealt cards to Mia and Jake. But I've had plans with Sarah for weeks. It's her birthday party, I protested, feeling my frustration bubble up. Family comes first, Sarah. You need to start prioritizing this family over your friends. Joan chimed in, her voice cold and distant. I sat down reluctantly, tossing a quick text to Sarah to apologize. The games felt forced, the laughter hollow. I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in my own home. As I turned 17, things worsened. One evening, I came home to find my room rearranged. Tom stood in the doorway, a satisfied look on his face. We needed to move some of your things around to make room for Jake's new desk. He needs a quiet place to study. My room? Why couldn't he use the guest room? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. Sarah, we thought this would be the best solution. Jake feels very comfortable here, Joan explained, not meeting my eyes. But this is my room, my space. I argued, feeling the walls close in on me. It's just a room, Sarah. Don't be so dramatic, Tom scoffed, waving a dismissive hand as he left the room. The tension reached its peak one night when I returned late from a study group. Tom was waiting in the living room, his expression stormy. It's past midnight, Sarah. This disrespect for our rules can't continue, he said sternly. I was studying, Tom. It's my senior year, and grades matter for college. I shot back, tired of having to defend my every move. Joan and I have discussed it, and we think it's best if you find another place to stay, at least until you can respect the rules of this house. Tom delivered the final blow coldly, with Joan standing silently beside him. My heart sank. You're kicking me out just like that? It's for the best. You need to learn some responsibility, Joan added, her voice void of the warmth it once held. I packed my bags, the weight of each item sinking deep into my soul. My grandparents, ever the sanctuary, took me in without a second thought. Sarah, you're always welcome here. Let's focus on your future, away from all this tension, my grandmother said as she helped me settle into their house, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd left behind. Living with my grandparents allowed me to breathe again. They encouraged me, supported my studies, and reminded me of what a loving family truly felt like. I poured my energy into school, determined to build a life that was truly mine, no longer overshadowed by Tom and Joan's oppressive presence. The day I moved in with my grandparents marked the start of something new, something better. Their home was filled with warmth and encouragement, a stark contrast to what I had been enduring. As I settled into this nurturing environment, I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor. Grades are just flying off the charts, Sarah. We knew you could do it, my grandfather would say every time I showed him my report card, his eyes twinkling with pride. Living there, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been buried under the stress at Joan and Tom's house. My grandparents nurtured not just my academic ambitions, but also my personal growth. They taught me how to manage finances, how to plan for the future, skills that Joan had overlooked in her rush to replace our family with Tom and his kids. So, what's the plan after graduation? My grandmother asked one evening as we sat down with tea, the garden's fresh air filling the room. I've been thinking a lot about it. I want to go for my master's degree, and well, I want to start by reclaiming Dad's house. It's not just a building to me, it's where all my memories of him are, I confessed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness at the thought. Una will support you in whatever you need, dear. That house is rightfully yours, she reassured me, gently squeezing my hand. With graduation approaching, I knew it was time to act. I contacted a lawyer, an old friend of my father's, to discuss my situation. Sarah, since you're turning 21 soon, you have the full legal right to reclaim your father's property as per his will, the lawyer explained over the phone. It's about time. I can't let Joan and Tom take away what Dad wanted me to have. I responded, determination firming my voice. Just make sure you're ready for any resistance. It might not be a smooth transition, he cautioned. Whatever it takes, I'm ready, I assured him, my resolve strengthening. Armed with legal advice and a plan, I began to prepare. I checked the property records, gathered all necessary documents, and even spoke to a real estate agent about the best way to handle the house once it was back in my hands. Sarah, it's not just about getting the house back. Think about what you want to do with it. Renting it out could be a good income, especially with your plans for grad school, the agent suggested during one of our meetings. That's exactly my plan. I want to renovate it first, make it mine again. I shared, feeling excited about the future for the first time in a long while. The day before my 21st birthday, I stood outside the house. It looked different, more imposing somehow, but it was still home. The home that my dad had left for me, the home that Joan and Tom had tried to steal under the guise of a happy family. Tomorrow, I would step through those doors again, not just as Sarah, the ousted daughter, but as Sarah, the rightful owner. The thought was empowering. I was no longer that scared teenager pushed around and pushed out. I was ready to reclaim not just the house, but my life and my future. Here's to new beginnings, right? I muttered to myself, a smile spreading across my face as I turned away, ready for what was to come. The morning Joan and her family were due back from vacation was crisp, charged with anticipation. I had spent the previous 2 weeks overseeing contractors as they updated the house. The new locks were the final touch, a clear sign that things were changing. As their car pulled into the driveway, I stood by the front door, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. The moment Joan, Tom, and the kids stepped out, confusion washed over their faces. "What's going on here? Why can't we get in?" Tom barked, jiggling the locked front door. "You all need to find another place to live. You have 2 weeks to move out," I announced, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "This is a joke, right?" Sarah stopped this nonsense and opened the door, Joan demanded, her tone mixing anger and disbelief. "It's no joke, Joan. I'm the legal owner of this house, and I've decided it's time for me to take it back. But this is our home. Where are we supposed to go?" Tom stepped forward, his voice rising. "This was never your home by right, Tom. This is my father's house, and he left it to me. You just moved in because Joan let you. You can't just kick us out like we're strangers, Sarah. After everything we've been through as a family." Joan's voice cracked, the facade of a caring mother briefly surfacing. "We were never a family by choice, Joan. You made your decisions, and now I've made mine. Sarah, please think about Mia and Jake. They've grown up here too," Joan pleaded, attempting to tug at any maternal strings that might have remained. "They'll adapt, just like I had to when I was forced out," I countered, my tone softening just a touch. It wasn't their fault, but I couldn't back down. "You're being heartless, Sarah. How could you do this to your own family?" Joan's accusation stung, but I braced myself against the emotional onslaught. "I learned from the best. Remember when you chose Tom over your own daughter? I'm doing what's necessary for my future, just like you did." The words hung heavy between us, and for a moment, Joan seemed lost for words. Tom clenched his fists, his frustration palpable. "We'll see about this. We're not leaving without a fight," Tom finally spat out, glaring at me with open hostility. "You have 2 weeks. Use them wisely to find a new place," I replied, turning to go back inside. The new locks clicked as I closed the door behind me. As I watched them from the window, gathering in the driveway and whispering urgently, a mix of emotions washed over me. There was sadness for what had never truly been, relief that I was finally taking control, and a fiery determination to rebuild my life on my terms. They would no longer dictate my happiness or my home. It was time for me to write my own story. As the 2-week deadline drew near, the tension around the neighborhood was palpable. You could see it in the hurried nods of the neighbors, hear it in the hushed whispers that followed me as I walked by. Some looked at me with respect, a nod to the strength it took to stand up for myself. Others, their eyes tinged with sympathy, clearly sided with Joan and Tom. On the final day, the moving truck pulled up early. I watched from the porch as Joan, Tom, and their kids began loading their belongings. The morning was cool, the sky a steely gray, mirroring the mood. "Sarah, I hope you're happy with yourself," Joan said as she carried a box past where I stood. "I am. This is about my future, Joan. You of all people should understand that," I replied, my voice steady despite the churn of emotions inside. "Destroying others for your own gain? Yes, I suppose I do know something about that," Joan shot back, bitterness lacing her words. "I'm not destroying anyone. I'm reclaiming what's mine. You had every chance to do things differently." As they continued to move their things, Mia approached me, her eyes uncertain, flickering with a mix of resentment and sadness. "This was my home too, Sarah. It's not fair," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know it feels that way, and I'm sorry you're caught in this. But this house is all I have left of my dad. I need to do this for him and for me. Mia nodded slowly, looking back at the house, then at her feet. I guess I get it. I just wish it didn't have to be this way. I wish that too, I admitted, feeling a pang of sympathy for her. She was just a kid caught in the crossfire of adult decisions. Tom came out with the last of their suitcases, his face hard, his eyes avoiding mine. Hope you find what you're looking for, Sarah. Really, he said, sarcasm dripping from every word. I already have, I responded quietly, turning back to the house. As they drove away, the house was empty now, quieter than it had ever been. As I walked through the rooms, each corner, each shadow held a memory of my dad, of my childhood before the world had shifted beneath my feet. It felt like I was seeing it all for the first time again. I spent the day cleaning and rearranging, turning the house back into a home, my home. The walls echoed with the possibility of new beginnings, of dreams yet to be dreamed. The weight of the past few years, the battles fought and won, began to lift. I was free from the toxicity that had once threatened to define my life. As I stood in the backyard looking at the garden that my dad and I had once tended together, I felt a deep sense of closure. I did it, Dad, I whispered into the wind, a smile breaking through. We did it. And with that, I turned back toward the house, ready to step into a future that was entirely my own, forged from resilience and the courage to stand my ground. The bitterness and harsh judgments no longer mattered. I was home, and I was free. The story of Sarah reclaiming her life and her home has come to an end. Now I have a question for you all. Was Sarah justified in taking back her house and displacing her mother and Tom? Considering they had made it their home too, what would you have done in her place? The sky over Boston hung heavy with gray clouds, casting a muted light over the city cemetery. It was a somber day, the kind where the weight of sorrow seemed to seep into every corner. A sea of mourners in black clothing gathered, their dark attire starkly contrasting the dreary backdrop. They had come to bid farewell to Robert, a man whose life had been as grand as his real estate empire. His departure left a void that no one could quite fill. Catherine, now in her late 60s, stood by Robert's grave, her face etched with profound sadness. She seemed lost in the crowd, a fragile figure draped in black. Her eyes, once bright with a spark of adventure and love, now reflected a deep and abiding loneliness. Robert, who had risen from humble beginnings to become a titan in the real estate world, had left her with more than just memories. He had left her a fortune of $150 million. Yet it was the emotional void, not the financial security, that loomed largest in her heart. Their children, Jane and Michael, were there too. Jane, at 42, was a blend of concern and stoicism. Her eyes often shifted to her mother, worried about the woman who had once been vibrant and full of life. Michael, 38, stood beside her, a reassuring presence. He and his family had come to support Catherine in their own way, but even their collective efforts seemed unable to bridge the chasm left by Robert's death. In the days that followed, Catherine struggled with her daily routine. The once celebrated woman of social gatherings and lively conversation had become a shadow of her former self. Friends and family tried to reach out, but Catherine found it difficult to engage. Her vibrant past with Robert, filled with travels and joyous moments, now seemed like a distant dream. She increasingly distanced herself from those who cared for her, enveloped in a cocoon of solitude. Recognizing her plight, her family decided to implement a visitation schedule to ensure she wasn't left alone too much. Michael, along with his wife and children, visited on Mondays. Jane and her family came on Tuesdays. Adam, the youngest, took Thursdays and Fridays. Despite these efforts, Catherine remained deeply lonely, her days blending into one another with an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The only breaks in her isolation came from her grandson Daniel. The lively young man used Catherine's backyard for his weekend parties. The laughter and music from these gatherings were often the only sounds that broke through Catherine's quiet solitude. It was at one of these parties that Catherine first noticed him, a young man named Luke. Luke, at 22, was strikingly handsome, with an easy confidence and an air of charm that reminded Catherine of Robert in his youth. It was Luke's casual approach, his way of blending into the festivities while still seeming somehow apart, that caught Catherine's attention. When he approached her, their conversation started with simple pleasantries but soon delved into deeper topics. Luke expressed his admiration for Catherine's wisdom and grace, and she found herself unexpectedly drawn to him. Their conversations grew more frequent, and Catherine began to feel a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. Luke's attentiveness and interest seemed to awaken a part of her that had lain dormant. It wasn't long before their meetings became a highlight of Catherine's week. She looked forward to their talks, to the moments when she could once again feel the warmth of companionship. However, as Catherine's spirits began to lift, her children grew concerned. They noticed the change in her mood and the frequency with which she spoke of Luke. Concern turned into suspicion as they began to question Luke's intentions. Catherine reassured them of her happiness, explaining that Luke brought a sense of joy and connection she had been missing. Despite her reassurances, Jane and Michael remained uneasy, their apprehension lingering like an unspoken shadow. In a surprising twist, Catherine announced her plans to marry Luke. The news was met with a mix of shock and disbelief from her family. They struggled to reconcile the image of their mother with a man so much younger, and the impending marriage stirred a whirlpool of emotions. Despite their reservations, they began preparations for the wedding, their faces reflecting a complex blend of support and skepticism. As the wedding day approached, the atmosphere was charged with an uneasy mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The ceremony, though unconventional, was marked by Catherine's visible joy. She was radiant, a stark contrast to the grief-stricken widow who had stood by Robert's grave only weeks earlier. Her happiness was palpable, a beacon amidst the uncertainty. However, as Catherine embraced this new chapter, the seeds of doubt sown by her children began to take root. Their concerns were about to be validated in ways they could never have anticipated. Little did they know, the path ahead would unravel secrets and reveal intentions that would shake the very foundation of their family's future. The wedding day dawned bright and crisp, a stark contrast to the overcast skies that had marked Robert's funeral. Catherine, dressed in a flowing white gown that shimmered with newfound vitality, was a vision of happiness. Her children, Jane and Michael, stood by, their expressions a mixture of worry and hope. Their concern was masked behind polite applause as the ceremony unfolded in the grand hall of their sprawling estate. It was an unusual spectacle, but for Catherine, it was a moment of pure joy. Luke, dressed in a sleek black suit, stood beside her at the altar. The stark disparity in their ages was undeniable, yet in this moment it seemed irrelevant. Catherine looked at Luke with a mixture of love and excitement, her eyes reflecting the hopes and dreams she had begun to rekindle. The guests watched with a blend of curiosity and apprehension, trying to absorb the surreal nature of the event. As the vows were exchanged, Jane and Michael exchanged uneasy glances. They had tried to voice their concerns to Catherine, but she had brushed them off, assuring them that Luke was genuine and that he made her happy. The ceremony concluded with cheers and congratulations, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of skepticism remained. In the weeks following the wedding, Catherine and Luke settled into their new life together. Catherine's spirit soared, buoyed by the presence of her young husband and the renewed sense of purpose he brought into her life. They traveled together, dined at luxurious restaurants, and indulged in activities that Catherine had long missed. To the outside world, it seemed as though Catherine had rediscovered her youthful zest for life. However, as the days passed, Jane and Michael's concerns deepened. They noticed subtle changes in their mother's behavior. Catherine seemed increasingly isolated from them, her interactions becoming more strained and defensive. It wasn't long before they began to suspect that Luke's intentions might not be as pure as he had portrayed. The turning point came when Jane decided to investigate Luke further. She discovered discrepancies in his background that raised alarm bells. Her investigation revealed that Luke had a history of financial troubles and questionable associations. Jane's findings were unsettling but not conclusive. She shared her concerns with Michael, who was equally troubled but unsure of how to confront their mother. Meanwhile, Daniel, Catherine's grandson, continued to host his parties in the backyard, the sound of music and laughter providing a temporary distraction from the growing tension. It was at one of these gatherings that Catherine first sensed a change in Luke's demeanor. He had become increasingly possessive and controlling, a shift that didn't escape Catherine's notice. One evening, Catherine stumbled upon a conversation between Luke and Daniel that sent chills down her spine. She overheard them discussing the estate and the substantial inheritance, $150 million, that Catherine had received. The words scheme and plan were mentioned in hushed tones. Catherine's heart raced as she realized the gravity of the situation. Unable to ignore her suspicions any longer, Catherine decided to take action. She reached out to a private detective, a trusted professional who had previously helped her with legal matters. The detective, a shrewd and experienced investigator named Richard, began to look into Luke's background and his connection to Daniel. As the investigation progressed, Richard uncovered a troubling truth. Luke and Daniel were involved in a plot to gain control of Catherine's inheritance. The scheme was elaborate. Luke had been manipulating Catherine's emotions to gain her trust and eventually access to her fortune. Daniel had been orchestrating the plan from behind the scenes, using his parties and gatherings as a cover for his machinations. The revelation was a devastating blow to Catherine, who felt betrayed by the very people she had welcomed into her life. Determined to protect her family's legacy, Catherine collaborated closely with Richard and the police to gather evidence. The investigation revealed that Luke had been preparing to make a move that would have left Catherine vulnerable and her inheritance compromised. The sense of betrayal was profound, but Catherine's resolve to confront the situation head-on grew stronger. The plan culminated in a dramatic showdown. Catherine, armed with evidence of Luke's deceit, confronted him in a tense and emotional exchange. Cornered and exposed, Luke attempted to escalate the situation. In a moment of desperation, he tried to suffocate Catherine, revealing the extent of his treachery. The police arrived just in time to intervene, arresting Luke and ensuring Catherine's safety. The confrontation was a jarring reminder of the dangers that lurked behind seemingly benign faces. Jane and Michael, horrified but relieved, gathered around their mother, providing the support she desperately needed. In the aftermath, Catherine faced the challenge of rebuilding trust and mending her fractured relationships. Her children, now more understanding of her plight, rallied around her, determined to support her as she navigated the fallout from the ordeal. The experience had been a harsh lesson, but it had also strengthened the bonds within the family. The weeks following Luke's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions for Catherine. The once vibrant atmosphere of her home was now filled with a somber tension. Luke's betrayal had left a deep scar, but Catherine's determination to reclaim her life and protect her family's legacy was unwavering. Jane and Michael, though shaken by the revelations, were resolute in their support for their mother. Catherine's first priority was to ensure that the $150 million inheritance was secure. With Richard's assistance, she took measures to safeguard her assets, making sure that all legal and financial arrangements were reinforced. The private detective's thorough investigation not only exposed Luke's deceit, but also provided Catherine with a clearer understanding of how to protect herself from further schemes. During this time, Catherine found solace in reconnecting with her children. Jane and Michael visited more frequently, and their interactions became more heartfelt and genuine. Michael, who had been cautious and distant, opened up about his feelings of helplessness during the ordeal. "I never imagined it would come to this," he admitted one evening as they sat around the dinner table. "I'm just glad you're safe, Mom." Jane, ever the concerned daughter, took on the role of mediator, helping to rebuild the family's emotional connections. Catherine organized weekly family dinners where everyone could talk openly and share their experiences. These gatherings became a cornerstone of their healing process. "We need to be there for each other more than ever," Jane said during one such dinner. "We've been through a lot, but we're stronger together." Despite the growing closeness within the family, Catherine still grappled with the emotional impact of the betrayal. She found herself reflecting on her past with Robert and the life they had built together. The once joyous memories were now tinged with a sense of loss. During one of her quiet moments of reflection, Catherine began to recognize the importance of her own resilience. She realized that while the betrayal had hurt deeply, it was also an opportunity for growth and renewal. Determined to move forward, Catherine began engaging in activities she had once enjoyed. She took long walks in the garden, reconnected with old friends, and even started attending local community events. Her efforts to reclaim her sense of self were met with encouragement from her family. Jane and Michael supported her newfound interests, often joining her in these activities. They attended art exhibitions, theater performances, and even went on weekend getaways, rediscovering the joy of spending time together. One evening, as Catherine and Jane sat on the porch watching the sun set over the horizon, Catherine shared her thoughts about the future. I've realized that I need to focus on what truly matters, she said softly. It's not just about the inheritance or the material things. It's about the love and support we have for each other. Jane nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of understanding and warmth. We've come a long way, Mom. We've learned so much from all of this. We need to cherish every moment and support each other through thick and thin. The family's renewed commitment to one another was evident in their daily interactions. They made a conscious effort to stay connected and involved in each other's lives. Catherine's resilience was mirrored in her children's dedication to rebuilding their family bonds. They organized family outings, game nights, and spontaneous adventures, creating new memories to replace those marred by the recent turmoil. Catherine's relationship with her grandson Daniel also began to heal. Although Daniel had been part of the scheme, he expressed deep regret for his actions and sought forgiveness. Catherine, while initially hesitant, decided to give him a chance to make amends. She invited him to family gatherings, allowing him to rebuild trust through consistent, genuine efforts. I know I've made mistakes, Daniel admitted during one family dinner, but I want to make things right. As the months passed, Catherine's home once again became a place of joy and warmth. The scars of betrayal were still present, but they no longer defined her. Instead, Catherine focused on embracing the present and looking forward to the future. Her strength and resilience had not only helped her overcome a difficult period, but had also brought her family closer together. In the end, Catherine's journey was a testament to the power of love, support, and resilience. The challenges she faced had strengthened her bond with her family, and the shared experiences had deepened their understanding of one another. As Catherine looked around at her family, Jane, Michael, Adam, and Daniel, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had faced adversity together and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever life might bring. Months had passed since the dramatic events that shook Catherine's life. The ordeal with Luke and Daniel had left deep marks, but Catherine's resilience and the unwavering support of her family had led them through a period of profound transformation. The family's newfound closeness was evident in every interaction and shared moment, and Catherine's home was once again filled with laughter and warmth. The once somber house now buzzed with activity as Catherine and her children organized a grand family reunion. It was not just a celebration of their renewed bond, but also a symbolic gesture of moving forward together. Catherine, dressed in a vibrant dress she had carefully chosen to mark the occasion, looked around at her family with a mixture of pride and contentment. Jane was busy arranging flowers in the dining room. Michael was setting up the outdoor barbecue, and Adam was putting the finishing touches on a slideshow of family photos. Daniel, having proven his sincerity through consistent actions, was actively helping with the preparations. It feels good to be part of something positive again, he said to Catherine as he carried a tray of drinks. Catherine smiled warmly at him. It's good to have you here, Daniel. We're all moving forward together. As guests began to arrive, the atmosphere was filled with cheerful chatter and the aroma of delicious food. The family had invited close friends and neighbors, turning the event into a true celebration of love and renewal. Amidst the festivities, Catherine took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The betrayal by Luke and Daniel had been painful, but it had also exposed the strength and resilience within her. Catherine's decision to focus on her family and embrace life's joys had not only helped her heal, but had also strengthened the bonds among her loved ones. She looked at her children, Jane, Michael, and Adam, and saw a renewed sense of unity and purpose. During the evening's toast, Catherine stood up, her heart full of gratitude. I want to thank each one of you for being here tonight, she began, her voice steady and warm. The past year has been one of the most challenging times of my life, but it has also shown me the depth of our family's love and strength. We faced difficulties, but we've come through them stronger and more connected. Her words were met with applause and cheers. Jane and Michael exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting their own pride in their mother's journey. Here's to new beginnings, Jane said, raising her glass. To family, to love, and to the future. The evening continued with laughter, music, and shared stories. As Catherine watched her family enjoying themselves, she felt a deep sense of peace. The scars from the past were still there, but they no longer dominated her life. Instead, she chose to focus on the present and the future, cherishing every moment with those she loved. As the night drew to a close, Catherine found herself sitting on the porch with Jane and Michael. The cool breeze and the starry sky provided a tranquil backdrop for their conversation. "I never thought I'd feel this content again," Catherine said softly, "but I do. I've learned that true happiness comes from the people we love and the moments we share." Jane placed a hand on her mother's shoulder. "We've all learned a lot this year, Mom. We've seen the importance of sticking together and supporting one another." Michael nodded in agreement. "And we've realized that no matter what challenges come our way, we can overcome them as a family." Catherine smiled, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The $150 million inheritance, once a source of conflict and anxiety, had been secured and was now a symbol of their collective strength and resilience. The true treasure, she realized, was the love and support they had for each other. As they sat together under the night sky, Catherine felt a renewed sense of hope and optimism. The future was filled with possibilities, and she knew that with her family by her side, they could face whatever came their way. The story of Catherine's journey from loneliness to renewal was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of family bonds. In the end, it was not the inheritance or the material wealth that mattered most, but the love and support that had seen them through the darkest times. As the final notes of the evening's music played and the last guest departed, Catherine looked around her home with a sense of contentment. The challenges of the past had been overcome, and the future was bright. Surrounded by her loving family, Catherine felt truly happy, knowing that together, they could conquer any challenge life might present.